What if you could solve a country's debt crisis by simply printing money? No higher taxes, no angry crowds, no painful reforms, just paper. In the early 18th century France, one man promised that money didn't need to be gold or silver, that value came from confidence, circulation, and belief. For a brief moment, he seemed right. Trade expanded, debt appeared to shrink, ordinary people felt richer. Paris buzzed with optimism, and then, almost as quickly, it all fell apart. This is the story of a financial experiment so bold, so modern, and so poorly understood that it nearly destroyed the French economy. It's the moment Europe learned that money is only as strong as the trust behind it. The year is 1715. France is still the most glamorous kingdom in Europe, but behind the silk, gold and ceremony, the finances are in ruins. King Louis XIV has just died. His reign lasted over 70 years and included constant wars across Europe, massive military spending, the construction of Versailles, a palace designed to overwhelm its rivals. The costs were staggering. France is drowning in state debt. Interest payments alone are consuming the treasury. Taxes are already brutally high, especially on peasants and merchants. Further increases risk unrest. To make matters worse, the new king, Louis XV, is just 5 years old. France is effectively ran by regents, men with power but no good options. Rising taxes is dangerous. France doesn't need an adjustment, it needs a miracle. That miracle, they hope, comes from an unlikely source. John Law. Law is not French, he's not noble, and he's not to be trusted. He's a Scottish gambler with a reputation for risk-taking, dueling, and radical ideas. But he's also brilliant. Law believes something almost heretical for the early 1700s. That money itself doesn't create wealth. Movement does. Gold locked in vaults, he argues, is useless. Paper money, circulating freely, can stimulate trade and growth. He believes inflation can be managed, debt can be reorganized, and confidence can replace metal. After years of rejection across Europe, France finally listens. Not because it believes him, but because it has no alternatives. In 1716, Law is allowed to open a private bank, La Banque Générale. The bank issues paper notes backed by government bonds and land, and shockingly, people accept them. Merchants trade with them, taxes are paid with them, the economy begins to move again. In 1718, the bank is nationalised and renamed the Banque Royale. John Law is now effectively France's central banker. But, unfortunately, Law's ambitions don't stop at banking. Paper money alone won't erase France's mountain of debt. He needs something bigger, something exciting enough to absorb massive amounts of government bonds. That's when he turns to colonial speculation. France owns an enormous stretch of land in North America, Louisiana, named after Louis XIV and centered along the Mississippi River. On maps, it looks vast and full of promise. Law takes control of a trading company holding exclusive rights to exploit this territory. Later, it becomes part of the even larger Company of the Indies. The promise is seductive. Gold and silver waiting to be mined, fertile land, monopoly trade rights, a French empire to rival Spain. The truth is far from glamorous. Louisiana is mostly swamp, forest, disease and danger, but almost no investors will ever see it. They don't need to. They only need to believe. Here's where speculation turns into obsession. Shares in the Mississippi Company can be bought using government debt. This is crucial. French bondholders, desperate to escape near worthless state IOUs, rush in. Demand explodes. The authorities attempt to shut it down unsuccessfully. Stories start to spread. Servants quitting jobs after one lucky trade. Nobles flipping shares between carriage rides. Entire fortunes made in weeks. The share price rises tenfold. Law fuels the rise by printing more paper money to keep demand alive. Paris feels wealthy. Consumption rises. Confidence soars. But the system now depends on one fragile thing. People believing everyone else will keep believing. But belief is fragile. The Mississippi Company's actual profits are tiny compared to its valuation. Worse, paper money is being printed faster than real economic growth. A few cautious investors start asking questions. What if I convert my notes into gold? They try and discover something terrifying. The gold isn't there. Word spreads quietly at first, then urgently. Confidence, the glue holding everything together, begins to dissolve. In 1720, panic erupts. Investors rush to sell, share prices collapse, paper money floods the streets, now nearly worthless. Inflation spikes, savings evaporate. Riots break out in Paris as trust in the system collapses. The government responds by changing rules mid-crisis, limiting gold withdrawals, fixing prices, and criminalizing speculation. Each move just makes things worse. John Law, once the most powerful man in France, becomes the symbol of betrayal. He flees Paris in disguise and dies years later, poor and forgotten. Paris survives, but the damage lingers. For decades, French citizens distrust banks, paper money, and financial innovation. Gold and silver are hoarded. Many historians argue this deep financial mistrust weakens France compared to Britain, a weakness that contributes to instability later in the century. One failed experiment reshapes a nation's relationship with money. The financial experiment just wasn't speculation. Monetary innovation without restraint, government debt disguised as opportunity, confidence mistaken for value. It taught a lesson that still applies today. Money isn't real because it exists. It's because people agree it is. Break that agreement and everything falls apart. If you enjoyed this story of bold ideas turning into disaster, subscribe for more moments where history reveals the truth about money. Markets change, tools evolve, but belief, that's always the real currency.